Disc 2. Unit 2. Aerodrome Procedures. Clear and concise phraseology is vital to the safe and efficient operation of an aerodrome. In the busy environment around an airport, it is essential that calls are made in the correct positions and are clear and unambiguous. Although precise procedures vary from place to place, the following is an overview of general VFR aerodrome communications. Details of local requirements can be found in the UK Air Pilot, Pooley's Flight Guide, or similar publications. Phraseology and procedure vary slightly depending on the level of service provided at an aerodrome. For example, whether it is an ATC, Aerodrome Flight Information Service, or simple air-ground station. With a full ATC service, controllers will issue instructions with which the pilots must comply. A FISOs will issue instructions on the ground, but information only is issued to aircraft flying in the ATZ. From this information, it is up to the pilot to decide on the safe course of action. At air-ground stations, only limited information will be available. Indeed, the air-ground operator may not necessarily be able to see the entire aerodrome. Obviously, in this case, all decisions are with the pilot. Departure information. ATIS. At busier airports, an automatic terminal information service, or ATIS, is broadcast to provide a range of data regarding weather and airfield conditions on a discrete frequency or selected VOR. This not only reduces frequency loading, but also enables the pilot to make an early decision about an approach or takeoff. A solely departure ATIS may be installed, and is only to be used by aircraft on the ground, as this frequency will have limited range protection. Controllers are required to obtain a readback of relevant pressure settings contained within the broadcast. Each ATIS message is coded consecutively using the phonetic alphabet. A new message is recorded at regular intervals, usually half-hourly, at the time of the routine meteorological observations at minutes 20 and 50, or whenever a significant change occurs. An ATIS message will contain some or all of the following items of information, in the order listed: the name of the aerodrome, the runway in use, and after type of approach to be expected, for instance ILS, SRA, the code letter, the time of the weather observation, the weather, the cloud, temperature and dew point, QNH, QFE, and threshold QFE if applicable, essential aerodrome information, a repeat of the identifying letter. Please note that rapidly changing situations may not be included in the ATIS broadcast. These will be passed by the controller to ensure the most up-to-date information is available. Let's listen to an example of an ATIS broadcast.
This is Denton Information Papa, time 1350. Expect an ILS approach runway 25. Surface wind 300 degrees, 15 knots. Visibility 8 kilometers, slight rain. Cloud broken 1,200 feet. Temperature +10, dew point +7. QNH 1004. Threshold QFE runway 25 1006. Taxiway Bravo is unavailable. Report information Papa received and aircraft type on initial contact with Denton.
Pilots of departing aircraft need only acknowledge receipt of an ATIS message when the broadcast includes a specific request to do so, as was the case in the one we've just heard. Pilots of arriving aircraft are required to acknowledge receipt of the ATIS message on initial contact with approach control using the code letter specified in the ATIS broadcast. In this case, it was information Papa. To avoid time-consuming repetition, pilots should advise ATC that they have received the latest ATIS. On departure, this should be done before taxiing.
Luton Ground, Golf Alpha Juliet Golf Victor, request radio check 121.750. Information Yankee received QNH 997 millibars.
Golf Alpha Juliet Golf Victor, Luton Ground, readability 5, Yankee current, QNH correct.
Golf Alpha Juliet Golf Victor, readability 5, request taxi.
Golf Golf Victor, taxi holding point Charlie 1, runway 26.
Taxi holding point Charlie 1, runway 26, Golf Golf Victor.
And on arrival, on first contact with the Air Traffic Service Unit.
Luton approach, Golf Alpha Juliet Golf Victor, inbound, information Bravo.
Golf Alpha Juliet Golf Victor, Luton approach, Bravo current, pass your message.
Golf Alpha Juliet Golf Victor, Grumman AA5, departing Newcastle, inbound to Luton, overhead Sandy, altitude 2,000 feet, VFR, request join.
The reply to pass your message is an important call, and we will look at it in much closer detail a little later. Where no ATIS is available, pilots should request the current aerodrome information before asking for startup. Note which of these items the pilot reads back to the controller.
Coventry ground, Golf Hotel Alpha Charlie Kilo, request departure information.
Golf Hotel Alpha Charlie Kilo, Coventry ground, departure runway 23, surface wind 250 degrees 12 knots, visibility greater than 10 kilometre, temperature plus 22, dew point plus 4, QNH 1007.
Runway 23, QNH 1007, Western Apron, request startup, Golf Hotel Alpha, Charlie Kilo.
Golf Charlie Kilo, start approved.
At some airfields, and for all traffic departing on an IFR flight plan, it is necessary to request permission to start engines. Requests to start engines help ATC plan the departure sequence and additionally prevent unnecessary fuel wastage, absorbing any delay with engines shut down. Including the parking position of the aircraft can also aid ATC in identifying the most expeditious departure order for all aircraft involved.
Birmingham ground, Modern Air 453, request start stand 8, information Zulu, QNH 1002.
Modern Air 453, Birmingham ground, start approved, temperature plus 17, Zulu current, QNH correct.
Or
Modern Air 453, Birmingham ground, expect start at time 27, temperature plus 8, Zulu current, QNH correct.
Or
Modern Air 453, Birmingham ground, departure at time 46, start approved when ready, temperature plus 12, Zulu current, QNH correct.
the temperature is passed to jet aircraft to aid the pilot in the start-up procedure.
Test procedures and the readability scale. Test transmissions should take the following format: the identification of the aeronautical station being called, the aircraft call sign, the words radio check, and finally the frequency being used. Replies will be in the following form: identification of the station calling, identification of the station replying, and finally information regarding the readability of the transmission. The quality of the transmission is classified in accordance with a prescribed scale. Other information regarding the quality of the transmission that may be useful to the station requesting the test may also be added. The readability scale and meaning. 1 means unreadable. 2, readable now and then. 3, readable but with difficulty. 4, readable. 5, perfectly readable.
Newcastle Tower, Golf Mike Juliet Delta Echo, radio check 119.7.
Golf Mike Juliet Delta Echo, Newcastle Tower, readability 5.
Or
Golf Mike Juliet Delta Echo, Newcastle Tower, readability 3 with a loud background whistle.
or alternatively,
Station calling Newcastle Tower, readability 1.
Taxi instructions. Any taxi instructions issued by a controller will always include a clearance limit. This will be the point at which the aircraft must stop until further permission to proceed is given. Usually for departing aircraft, this will be the holding point for the runway in use. At busier aerodromes, there are often separate ground and tower frequencies. Unless contrary information is broadcast on the ATIS message, on departure, initial contact should be made on the ground frequency. The ground controller is responsible for aircraft on the manoeuvring area up to the holding points to the runway in use. Outbound aircraft will be transferred to the tower as the aircraft is at or approaching the holding point. During pre-departure manoeuvres, precise and correct phraseology is essential to prevent a runway incursion, where an aircraft enters the active runway without permission, clearly an undesirable and potentially dangerous event. So that no misunderstanding arises, unless an aircraft is actually being cleared for takeoff, the word departure should be used by both ATC and pilots. It is good practice to remind the controller of the aircraft's position when requesting taxi. The controller may reiterate the QNH.
Oxford ground, Golf Alpha, Juliet, Golf Victor. Grass parking, request taxi for local VFR flight.
Golf Alpha Juliet, Golf Victor, Oxford ground. Taxi holding point, runway 01, QNH 1007.
Taxi holding point, runway 01, QNH 1007. Golf Alpha, Juliet, Golf Victor.
It's a good idea to write down the taxi clearance, indeed any clearance, as it is spoken, and read back what you've written. All taxi instructions are a mandatory readback item. The following is an example of a conditional taxi clearance.
Luton ground, Golf Alpha Tango Hotel Romeo, hangar H9er, request taxi.
Golf Alpha Tango Hotel Romeo, Luton ground. After an outbound Airbus 320 passes right to left, taxi Bravo 1, runway 08.
After the outbound A320, taxi Bravo 1, runway 08, Golf Alpha Tango Hotel Romeo.
At larger airports with a ground frequency, ground control will be responsible for aircraft up to the holding point to the runway in use. It is here that the pilot will be instructed to change to the tower frequency. At smaller air traffic controlled aerodromes, tower will look after both the taxiways and the runway. Note the use of the phrase report ready for departure in this next example. Remember that in order to avoid any potential confusion, we only use the phrase takeoff when the aircraft is actually being cleared for takeoff.
Golf Mike Echo, request taxi.
Golf Mike Echo, taxi holding point Alpha 1, report ready for departure.
Golf Mike Echo, taxi to Alpha 1, Wilco. Golf Mike Echo, ready for departure.
Golf Mike Echo, hold position, contact Wick Tower, 119.7.
Hold position, changing to Wick Tower, 119.7. Golf Mike Echo.
At aerodromes with more than one runway, if taxi instructions will mean an aircraft has to cross a runway en route to the holding point for the runway in use, the clearance will involve a specific instruction to cross.
Golf November Tango, taxi holding point Alpha 1, cross runway 16.
Taxi holding point Alpha 1, cross 16, Golf November Tango.
If that instruction was not received, you must not attempt to cross the runway, but wait for further taxi clearance. If you're in any doubt, ask for clarification. Controllers may use the phrase hold short to emphasise the need to stop at the holding point and not to cross the inactive runway.
Golf November Tango, taxi holding point Alpha 1, hold short of runway 16.
Taxi holding point Alpha 1, hold short runway 16, Golf November Tango.
We will now look at the procedures for takeoff. When we get towards an active runway, the consequences of a misunderstanding can be extremely serious. Controllers will not transmit to an aircraft during the takeoff or initial climb out unless it is absolutely essential. If more than one runway is in use, or the aircraft is not yet lined up, the runway designator will be stated in the takeoff clearance and should be read back to the controller. There are a finite number of responses that you can expect to your ready for departure call. Let's have a look at each one in detail. The call may simply be acknowledged by the controller, in which case you should hold position and wait for further instructions.
Biggin Tower, Golf Oscar Sierra, Mike Golf, ready for departure.
Golf Oscar Sierra Mike Golf, Biggin Tower, roger.
The controller may instruct you to line up, in which case you're allowed to taxi onto the runway centreline and hold.
Golf Bravo Hotel, ready for departure.
Golf Bravo Hotel, runway 25, line up.
Line up, runway 25, Golf Bravo Hotel.
If the aircraft will be lining up at an intermediary taxiway, that is, one that is not a runway threshold, the intersection will be stated in the line-up clearance.
Golf Bravo Hotel at Charlie 1, line up runway 26.
Charlie 1, line up runway 26, Golf Bravo Hotel.
A controller may wish to emphasise the fact that your clearance is to line up only, by using the phrase line up and wait. There may be traffic vacating the runway, or making a missed approach, or some other obstruction, so the controller wants to ensure that you do not commence a takeoff roll.
Golf Sierra Papa, ready for departure.
Golf Sierra Papa, line up and wait runway 27.
Line up and wait, runway 27, Golf Sierra Papa.
A conditional clearance may be issued to help the traffic flow, meaning that you must comply with a particular condition before executing the instruction. All aircraft involved must have visual reference, and the controller must also have the aircraft concerned visual. The conditional clearance will relate to one movement only, and if the subject aircraft is landing, it must be the first on the approach, i.e. the next to land. Conditional clearances have been linked with numerous runway incursion incidents, so it is vital that the pilot has identified the subject aircraft correctly. If there is any doubt, ask. The format of the clearance will be call sign, the condition, identification of the subject of the condition, the instruction. You must read back a conditional clearance.
Golf Charlie Kilo, ready for departure.
Golf Charlie Kilo, after the landing Seneca, line up runway 31.
After the landing Seneca, line up runway 31, Golf Charlie Kilo.
With all of the above, you must wait for the takeoff clearance to be issued. Of course, it is possible that you will be cleared for takeoff straight away, in which case you are allowed to enter the runway and commence your takeoff. The controller will usually give a surface wind check at the same time as issuing takeoff clearance. Do not read back the wind check, it is for your information only.
Golf Mike Echo, runway 27, cleared for takeoff, surface wind, tree 00 degrees, 14 knots.
Clear for takeoff, runway 27, Golf Mike Echo.
As a pilot, you should read back the takeoff clearance, leaving your call sign to the end of the message. Should a particular departure instruction be included in your takeoff clearance, this must also be read back.
Golf Mike Echo, left turn out, VFR, runway 27, cleared for takeoff, surface wind, tree 00 degrees, 14 knots.
Left turn out, VFR, runway 27, clear for takeoff, Golf Mike Echo.
If an expeditious departure is required, the instruction cleared immediate takeoff will be used. If the pilot accepts this clearance, he or she should, if already on the runway, begin the takeoff immediately, or, if at the holding point, taxi onto the runway and take off without stopping.
Golf Charlie Delta, are you ready for an immediate departure?
A-firm, Golf Charlie Delta.
Golf Charlie Delta, runway 27, cleared immediate takeoff, surface wind, tree 00 degrees, 14 knots.
Cleared immediate takeoff, Golf Charlie Delta.
You may or may not be told the reason for the need for expedition.
Golf Bravo Hotel, Boeing 737, 2 miles on final approach, runway 28, cleared immediate takeoff, wind 240 degrees, 8 knots.
Runway 28, cleared immediate takeoff, Golf Bravo Hotel.
If, for safety reasons, it becomes necessary to cancel a takeoff clearance, the following phraseology will be used. If the pilot has not yet started the takeoff roll,
Golf X-ray Foxtrot, hold position, cancel. I say again, cancel takeoff, acknowledge.
Holding. Golf X-ray Foxtrot.
and if the aircraft has already commenced its takeoff,
Golf X-ray Foxtrot, stop immediately. I say again, Golf X-ray Foxtrot, stop immediately, acknowledge.
Golf X-ray Foxtrot, stopping.
as you can see, this instruction includes the command acknowledge, emphasizing that it must be read back to the controller. The response should be kept brief, as depending on the circumstances, the controller's workload may be quite high. If the pilot abandons the takeoff, the tower should be advised as soon as it is safe to do so. Subsequent assistance or taxi instructions should be requested as required.
Golf Charlie Kilo, stopping.
Golf Charlie Kilo, roger.
Golf Charlie Kilo, request return to apron.
Golf Charlie Kilo, vacate next right, hold Hotel 4.
Vacate right, hold Hotel 4, Golf Charlie Kilo.
Golf Charlie Kilo, contact Denton Ground 119.4.
Changing to Denton Ground 119.4, Golf Charlie Kilo.
In conditions of poor visibility, the pilot may be asked to report airborne.
Golf Hotel Echo, cleared for takeoff, surface wind 040 degrees, less than 5 knots, report airborne.
Clear for takeoff, Wilco, Golf Hotel Echo. Golf Hotel Echo, airborne.
Golf Hotel Echo, contact Luton Radar 129.550.
Contact Luton Radar 129.550, Golf Hotel Echo.
At an aerodrome providing an aerodrome flight information service, different phraseology will be used reflecting the change in responsibility. As a pilot, you will report ready for departure in the same way. The Aerodrome Flight Information Service officer will then provide you with information to help you decide whether a safe line-up and departure may be made.
Golf Alpha Victor, ready for departure.
Golf Alpha Victor, PA28, base leg, take off at your discretion, surface wind 09014.
Taking off, Golf Alpha Victor.
As you hear, you should advise the FISO of your intentions as above. Notwithstanding the level of service provided, the ultimate decision as to whether it is safe to enter an active runway remains the pilot's responsibility. Even if given a clearance by ATC to enter the runway, the pilot should always check visually before doing so.
The aerodrome traffic circuit. The circuit is a rectangular pattern flown around a runway. The circuit in an aerodrome can be a busy place, and it's important that calls are made in the correct positions so that all pilots in the vicinity can build up an accurate mental picture of each other's place in the circuit. Downwind should be reported when abeam the upwind end of the runway, like so.
Golf Mike Oscar, downwind.
If it has not been possible to make that transmission, a late downwind call may be made further along the downwind leg.
Golf Mike Oscar, late downwind.
Base leg calls are normally only made at the request of the ground station. If required to, you should make the report at the beginning of the base leg.
Golf Bravo Papa, report base.
Wilco, Golf Bravo Papa. Golf Bravo Papa, base leg.
Final, and please note there's only one, is called when the aircraft has turned on to final approach and is lined up with the landing runway.
Golf Bravo Hotel, final.
Should you be joining from a suitable direction, by that I mean a direction already in line with the runway, a long final report can be made between 8 and 4 nautical miles.
Golf Romeo, long final.
The standard pattern is left hand, that is, all turns are made to the left. Where a right-hand, non-standard pattern is used, this will be specified. A left-hand pattern will only be specified unless the circuit direction is variable. When flying in the circuit, it's useful to other aircraft and the ground station to broadcast your intentions, especially when a series of circuits are being flown. For example,
Golf Hotel Hotel, downwind touch and go.
and towards the end of a circuit detail,
Golf Alpha Mike, downwind to land.
requests to join the circuit should be made in sufficient time for a planned entry to the pattern, taking other traffic into account. It is suggested that first radio contact should be made 5 to 10 miles from the aerodrome. Give yourself plenty of time to receive, note down and make sure you have understood your joining instructions. You should not enter an ATZ until you have been given permission to do so by air traffic control or have received the necessary information from the AFISO or Air Ground Service to enable the flight to be conducted safely. We will now look at how we go about joining the circuit. Many airfields have special joining procedures in use to take account of local requirements, perhaps because of environmental, noise issues, adjacent aerodromes, local terrain or airspace. When flying to an unfamiliar field, it's highly advisable to spend some time before departure studying the chart for any idiosyncrasies. There may be particular visual reporting points that you are required to route to initially before continuing to the airfield. Good pre-flight planning will help you prepare for what to expect. If an ATIS is available, this should be listened to before first contact with the aerodrome and acknowledged on the initial call. Aircraft can be instructed to join on any leg of the circuit or to execute a standard overhead join. The standard overhead join is an alternative joining procedure often used at smaller aerodromes. In this case, the aircraft is required to overfly the aerodrome at 2,000 feet above aerodrome elevation and, if not already known, determine the circuit direction using the signal square, windsock, or the pattern formed by other traffic. The aircraft is then positioned onto the dead side of the circuit and descent is made to circuit height. A transmission should be made at this point, descending dead side. You should then join the circuit by crossing the upwind end of the runway at circuit height. It's a good idea to keep the runway in sight to one side and avoid flying directly over the threshold. And finally, position and report downwind. Having joined the circuit, routine reports will need to be made or as required by local procedures. A good lookout should be maintained throughout a standard overhead join. We'll now listen to some joins.
Norwich Tower, Golf Hotel, Bravo Alpha Hotel, inbound.
Golf Hotel Bravo Alpha Hotel, Norwich Tower, pass your message.
Golf Hotel Bravo Alpha Hotel, PA28, departed Elstree, inbound 10 miles south, altitude 2,000 feet, request join.
Golf Alpha Hotel, join downwind, runway 27, QFE 986 millibars.
Join downwind, runway 27, QFE 986 millibars, Golf Alpha Hotel.
And a second example.
South End Tower, Golf Sierra Tango Tango November.
Golf Sierra Tango Tango November, South End Tower, pass your message.
Golf Sierra Tango Tango November, Cessna 182, departed Newcastle, inbound 15 miles north, altitude 2,000 feet, information Romeo, request join.
Golf Tango November, join and report right base runway 24, Romeo current, QNH 1004.
Join and report right base runway 24, QNH 1004, Golf Tango November. Golf Tango November base.
Golf Tango November, runway 24, report final.
Wilco, Golf Tango November. November final.
Golf Tango November, cleared to land, surface wind 220 degrees, 7 knots.
Cleared to land, Golf Tango November.
And now let's listen to an example of a standard overhead join.
Golf Alpha Victor, report overhead for a standard overhead join.
Wilco, Golf Alpha Victor. Golf Alpha Victor, overhead.
Golf Alpha Victor, report descending dead side.
Wilco, Golf Alpha Victor, dead side descending.
Golf Alpha Victor, roger, report downwind.
Wilco, Golf Alpha Victor. Golf Alpha Victor, downwind.
If the aircraft is arriving from a suitable direction and the prevailing traffic situation is favourable, it may be possible to make a straight-in approach.
Cranville Tower, Golf Alpha Victor, Hotel, Grumman AA5, departed Fair Oaks, inbound 12 miles east, altitude 2,500 feet.
Golf Alpha Victor, Hotel, Cranville Tower, cleared straight-in approach runway 27, QNH 1002, report final.
Cleared straight in, runway 27, QNH 1002, Wilco, Golf Hotel. Golf Hotel, long final.
Golf Hotel, continue approach.
Continue approach, Golf Hotel.
At aerodromes handling larger aircraft, a wake turbulence warning may also be issued.
Golf Hotel, downwind.
Golf Hotel, report final number 2. Follow a Boeing 737, 1 mile final. Caution wake turbulence, recommended spacing 6 miles.
Report final number 2, visual with the Boeing 737, Golf Hotel. Golf Hotel final.
Golf Hotel, continue approach runway 27, traffic to vacate.
In order to ensure a smooth flow of traffic, as we have just seen, you may be asked to follow another aircraft. It is essential that you advise the tower when you have the traffic in sight.
Golf Romeo Juliet, downwind.
Golf Romeo Juliet, report final number 2. Follow a Cessna 172, base leg.
Report final number 2, visual with the Cessna 172, Golf Romeo Juliet. Golf Romeo Juliet final.
Golf Romeo Juliet, runway 27, cleared to land, surface wind 230, 12 knots.
Runway 27, cleared to land, Golf Romeo Juliet.
Alternatively, it may be necessary to issue delaying or expediting instructions.
Golf Papa Lima, downwind.
Golf Papa Lima, extend downwind, number 3, follow the Seneca 4 mile final.
Extend downwind, follow the Seneca, Golf Papa Lima.
Orbit simply means make a 360-degree turn in the specified direction.
Golf November Tango, downwind.
Golf November Tango, delaying action, orbit left, report again downwind.
Orbit left, Wilco, Golf November Tango.
Final approach and landing. A final report is made when an aircraft turns onto final approach. If the aircraft is established on the final approach track between 8 and 4 miles from touchdown, a long final report should be made. Once you have reported final, there are a finite number of responses to be expected from the ground in reply. We will now look at each in turn. Any of the instructions may include the runway designator. Should the tower broadcast it, You must read it back. Cleared to land will be issued at an air traffic control aerodrome when the runway is unobstructed and available for you to use. A clearance to land must be read back as follows.
Golf Charlie Kilo, runway tree, cleared to land, surface wind 010 degrees, 10 knots.
Runway tree, cleared to land, Golf Charlie Kilo.
When it is not possible to issue landing clearance, but it is expected that the runway will be unobstructed and available in good time for your aircraft to make a safe landing, you will hear continue approach. If the response is to continue, the controller may or may not explain why landing clearance has not been issued. It must be emphasised that continue is not an invitation to land. The pilot must wait for either landing clearance or missed approach instructions.
Golf Kilo Bravo, final.
Golf Kilo Bravo, runway 14, continue approach, traffic to vacate.
Runway 14, continue approach, Golf Kilo Bravo.
Golf Kilo Bravo, runway 14, cleared to land, wind 120 degrees, 15 knots.
Runway 14, cleared to land, Golf Kilo Bravo.
The go-around. To avoid an unsafe situation, the controller may instruct the pilot to initiate a missed approach. Transmissions will be kept brief due to the increasing cockpit workload. As you will hear, the instruction is repeated for emphasis, and the pilot is specifically asked to confirm that the go-around instruction has been received using the word acknowledge.
Saints 88, go around, I say again, go around, acknowledge.
Going around Saints 88.
In the event of a missed approach, VFR traffic is expected to continue into the normal visual traffic circuit. IFR traffic will carry out the published missed approach procedure unless alternative instructions are issued. If the pilot wishes to initiate a missed approach, ATC should be advised as soon as practicable.
Golf Alpha Mike, going around.
Golf Alpha Mike, roger, standard missed approach.
Or,
Modern Air 887, going around.
Modern Air 887, roger, climb straight ahead to altitude 2,000 feet.
Straight ahead to altitude 2,000 feet, Modern Air 887.
during training, if circuits are being flown, touch-and-go landings may be requested, in which case, when on final, you would be cleared touch-and-go.
Golf Alpha Victor, downwind touch and go.
Golf Alpha Victor, roger, report final.
Wilco, Golf Alpha Victor. Golf Alpha Victor, final.
Golf Alpha Victor, runway 24, cleared touch and go, surface wind calm.
Runway 24, cleared touch and go, Golf Alpha Victor.
A touch-and-go is where the aircraft lands, does not stop, and then accelerates for another takeoff. Sometimes it may not be possible to authorise this, perhaps due to the wake of a departing heavier aircraft or other traffic reasons. In this situation, you would hear
Golf Alpha Victor, final touch and go.
Golf Alpha Victor, unable to approve due to traffic, full stop landing. Runway 24, cleared to land, surface wind calm.
Runway 24, cleared to land, Golf Alpha Victor.
You would then land the aircraft, stop on the runway, and wait for further instructions. It is helpful if the controller is advised when an aircraft flying a series of circuits is on the last one. Suitable phraseology is Golf Alpha Victor, downwind, last landing, or Golf Alpha Victor, downwind to land. Occasionally, controllers may issue an instruction to land after. Perhaps a preceding aircraft has landed but not yet vacated the runway. In this scenario, a following aircraft may be permitted to touch down provided certain conditions are met. Firstly, this procedure may only be used by day, and the runway must be long enough to allow safe separation. Additionally, the controller must be satisfied that the landing aircraft will be able to see the preceding aircraft clearly and continuously until it has vacated the runway, and the pilot of the following aircraft is warned. Responsibility for ensuring safe separation rests with the pilot of the following aircraft.
Saints 88, land after the A320 vacating at Charlie, runway 19er, surface wind calm.
Runway 19er, land after the A320, Saints 88.
At an aerodrome with an aerodrome flight information service, the phraseology is slightly different to reflect the change in responsibility. Note the use of the phrase "at your discretion," placing the responsibility for safe operations firmly with you, the pilot.
Golf India Echo, final.
Golf India Echo, land at your discretion, wind 230, 9er knots.
Landing, Golf India Echo.
You may acknowledge the AFISO simply with "Roger." However, for everyone's improved situational awareness, it may be better to advise the AFISO of your intentions. The AFISO may advise you of other traffic ahead. Remember, it is up to you to decide on the safe course of action.
Golf Sierra Mike, final.
Golf Sierra Mike, Roger. 2 aircraft ahead on final.
Roger, Golf Sierra Mike.
For training purposes, the pilot may request permission to make an approach along or parallel to the runway without landing.
Golf Golf Victor, request low approach, runway 36 for training.
Golf Golf Victor, runway 36, cleared low approach not below 400 feet above threshold elevation, vehicle on the runway.
Runway 36, cleared low approach, not below 400 feet, Golf Golf Victor.
The pilot of a retractable undercarriage aircraft may request a flypast of the control tower so that a visual inspection of the landing gear can be made from the ground. If the tower is located some way from the runway itself, there may be a wait while a suitably qualified observer is positioned closer to the runway. If the purpose of the observation is for a landing gear check, one of the following replies will be used to describe its condition. Landing gear appears down. Right or left or nose wheel appears up or down. Right or left or nose wheel does not appear up or down.
Golf Golf Alpha, request low pass, unsafe left gear indication.
Golf Golf Alpha, runway 36, cleared low pass not below 400 feet.
Runway 36, cleared low pass, not below 400 feet, Golf Golf Alpha.
Let's now have a look at what you can expect to happen after landing. Controllers will not pass taxi instructions until the landing roll is completed, so as not to overload the pilot. At aerodromes where both a tower and ground frequency are in operation, pilots should remain with the tower until advised. This will usually be until the aircraft has vacated the runway.
Golf Sierra Papa, vacate right, hold at Charlie 2, report vacated.
Vacate right, hold Charlie 2, Wilco, Golf Sierra Papa. Golf Sierra Papa, runway vacated.
Golf Sierra Papa, contact Coney ground 121.0.
Contact Colney ground 121.0, Golf Sierra Papa.
Another example may be
Golf Bravo Hotel, vacate left. When vacated, contact Cranville ground 121.075.
Vacate left, and when vacated, Cranville ground 121.075, Golf Bravo Hotel.
you have vacated the runway when all of the aircraft has crossed the holding point, and then you would select frequency 121.075.
Cranville ground, Golf Tango Alpha Bravo Hotel, runway vacated.
Golf Tango Alpha Bravo Hotel, Cranville ground. Taxi to the apron via taxiway Bravo, park stand 51.
Taxiway Bravo to the apron, park stand 51, Golf Tango Alpha Bravo Hotel.
Helicopter operations. The vast majority of phraseology is the same for both rotary and fixed-wing aircraft. Slight differences may be experienced by helicopter pilots in relation to departure and arrival, and also during taxi. Flight Information Service officers at aerodromes follow slightly different rules for helicopters, in that instructions can be passed to helicopters during air taxi, even though the aircraft is technically airborne and should therefore receive information only. To start with, the helicopter's call sign. If appropriate, the pilot or air traffic service unit may replace the manufacturer's name or aircraft model with the term helicopter where this may benefit the air traffic service unit or other aircraft. For example, Golf Hotel Echo Lima India may be abbreviated to Golf Lima India or Helicopter Lima India. However, often it will be more useful to ATC to know the particular helicopter type, since different procedures may be applied to single or twin-engined helicopters. Let's look at the procedures for helicopters taxiing, whether it be for departure, after landing, or for general manoeuvring on the aerodrome. Helicopters are generally expected to follow the same procedures or routes on aerodromes as aeroplanes unless otherwise authorised. The words used by air traffic control will have particular meaning to the helicopter pilot. The term lift is used to tell the pilot that he may get airborne and enter the hover. Hover describes the manoeuvre where the helicopter holds position whilst airborne in ground effect. Hover allows the helicopter to carry out spot turns, i.e. turns about the central axis of the helicopter. When the helicopter is permitted to taxi, the controller will use one of the following terms. Air taxi. Air taxi is used when the helicopter is required to proceed at a slow speed above the surface. The ICAO definition states that this should normally be below 20 knots and in ground effect. An instruction to ground taxi is used to allow the movement of a helicopter in contact with the surface of the aerodrome under its own power. This may be requested of a helicopter fitted with wheels to reduce rotor downwash. An instruction to taxi leaves the pilot free to select the most appropriate method. When a taxiing helicopter is required to come to a halt, the instruction will be to hold. Fairly obviously, if the helicopter is ground taxiing, it will hold on the ground, unless specifically instructed otherwise. A helicopter air taxiing and instructed to hold may hold in the hover or may touch down and hold on the ground at the pilot's discretion. If touchdown is not authorised for a particular reason, ATC may instruct the helicopter to hold in the hover. The phraseology for taxi manoeuvres is the same for air traffic control and aerodrome flight information service. We'll now examine the phraseology used for helicopter takeoff and landings. This section only applies where an air traffic control service is provided. At such aerodromes, all movements will be subject to the permission of the air traffic control unit. Helicopter takeoff and landings may not be restricted to designated runways or landing areas. With permission, helicopters may take off and land at any suitable location on the aerodrome. At aerodromes with air traffic control service, when helicopters land or take off on the manoeuvring area, as long as the aerodrome controller has the helicopter in sight, they will use cleared for takeoff or cleared to land. In this context, the word touchdown means that part of the flight when the helicopter comes into contact with the surface in accordance with normal operation. A clearance to land leaves the pilot of the helicopter free to either enter the low hover or touchdown as required. Again, at aerodromes with an ATC service, when a helicopter lands or takes off at locations not on the manoeuvring area, for example an apron, maintenance area, or even a site adjacent to the aerodrome, or any location not in sight of the visual control room, the phrase land at your discretion or take off at your discretion is used to authorise the manoeuvres. This RT procedure will also be applied when using unlit locations at night.
Cardiff Tower, Golf Hotel Echo Lima, India. Radio check 125.0.
Golf Hotel Echo Lima India, Cardiff Tower, readability 5, pass your message.
Golf Hotel Echo Lima India, Robertson R22, West Parking Area. Request taxi to the training area.
Golf Lima India, taxi hold Echo, surface wind 120, 5 knots.
Taxi to hold Echo, Golf Lima India.
Remember, the use of the word taxi indicates that the pilot is free to air taxi or ground taxi at his or her discretion. As our example involves an R22, it has no choice but to air taxi.
Golf Lima India, hold position. After the departing Boeing 737 runway 30, cross the runway north to south, air taxi to the training area.
Hold position after the departing Boeing 737. Cross an air taxi to training area. Golf Lima India.
Let's hear another example.
Luton Tower, Golf Hotel, Echo Lima India. Request taxi for departure runway 08. Information Foxtrot. QNH 909.6 millibars.
Golf Hotel, Echo Lima India, Luton Tower, taxi holding point Bravo 1, runway 08.
Taxi holding point Bravo 1, runway 08, Golf Hotel, Echo Lima India. Golf Hotel, Echo Lima India, ready for departure.
Golf Lima India, runway 08, cleared for takeoff, surface wind 120, 7 knots.
Clear for takeoff, Golf Lima India.
If the helicopter was departing from a position not on the manoeuvring area and out of sight of the controller, they would have said,
Golf Lima India, take off at your discretion, wind 120, 7 knots.
VFR and approach control. At some airports, an approach control service may be provided in and around the control zone or ATZ. We will now look at what information and assistance a VFR aircraft can receive from approach control. On departure, the tower will normally advise you to establish contact with approach control. A departing VFR flight being handled by approach control may be passed information on relevant known traffic. The pilot can then use this information to maintain his own separation. Pilots should advise the approach control unit when leaving the area under its jurisdiction.
Birmingham approach, Golf Bravo November Oscar Zulu.
Golf Bravo November Oscar Zulu, Birmingham approach. Traffic opposite direction R22 helicopter, VFR altitude 1,500 feet. Report the northern zone boundary.
Visual with R22, Wilco, Golf Bravo November Oscar Zulu. Golf Bravo November Oscar Zulu, northern zone boundary.
Golf Oscar Zulu, basic service, available from London Information 124.6.
Changing to London Information 124.6, Golf Oscar Zulu.
Subject to local procedures, the pilot of an arriving VFR flight is required to establish contact with the approach control unit before entering the area under its jurisdiction, i.e. before entering a control zone or ATZ. Allowing plenty of time means that both the controller and the pilot can plan for an orderly arrival. Where there is an ATIS broadcast, the pilot should acknowledge receipt on initial contact. Elsewhere, the approach controller will pass the aerodrome information. Air traffic control's response to the initial contact call will either be pass your message, inviting you to pass your flight details, or standby, simply meaning that the controller is engaged with another task. You should say nothing in response to an instruction to stand by. Simply wait and the controller will call you back. I said earlier that we will look at the reply that should be made to pass your message. It is an important call, as it is used in many situations, not just for joining an airfield. We will do that now. The controller will need to know certain details regarding your flight to ensure that all the information is passed and ideally in the correct order. An aide-memoire is helpful. The mnemonic ADPAR, ADDPAR, can be used as a prompt until the call becomes second nature. Thus, A is the aircraft call sign and type, D is the departure point, D is the destination, P is your present position, A your altitude or flight level, and R, your request, your intentions, or any additional information. What you request, or the additional information you provide, is whatever is relevant to your phase of flight. A request for joining instructions, a particular service, permission to enter a MATS or CTR, or informing the controller about additional details of your flight, for example, your flight rules, ETA or intentions. Note that if it is your intention to enter controlled airspace, your flight rules should be passed to the controller.
Bournemouth approach. Golf Oscar Hotel Echo Echo. Information Juliet. Inbound.
Golf Oscar Hotel Echo Echo, Bournemouth approach. Juliet current. QNH 1002, pass your message.
So in this instance, A would be Golf Oscar Hotel Echo Echo, PA 28. D, your departure point, from Newcastle. D, your destination, to Bournemouth. P, present position, overhead Popham. A, your altitude or flight level, in this instance, altitude 2,500 feet, QNH 1002. And finally, your request or intentions, with any additional information, is VFR, ETA 14, request join. So that would read
Golf Oscar Hotel Echo Echo, PA 28 from Newcastle to Bournemouth, overhead Popham, altitude 2,500 feet, QNH 1002, VFR, ETA 14, request join.
Golf Oscar Hotel Echo Echo cleared from the zone boundary, VFR, not above altitude 2,000 feet. Report aerodrome in sight.
Clear to enter the control zone VFR, not above altitude 2,000 feet. Wilco Golf Oscar Hotel Echo Echo.
Golf Echo Echo, traffic is at Tomahawk northbound, departed Bournemouth and estimating the zone boundary at 07.
Golf Echo Echo visual. Golf Echo Echo, airfield in sight.
Golf Echo Echo, roger, join right base runway 26.
Join right base, runway 26, Golf Echo Echo.
Example VFR flights. We'll now look at some example flights from the main types of aerodrome that you will encounter. Firstly, we'll look at a departure and rejoin to an airfield having an air-ground communication service. Remember, the call sign will be radio, and only rudimentary information will be available. All the decisions regarding safe airfield operation are yours.
Falmere Radio, Golf Oscar Sierra Mike Golf, request radio check 135.7 and airfield information.
Golf Oscar Sierra Mike Golf, Falmere Radio, readability 5, runway 25, right-hand circuit.
Golf Oscar Sierra Mike Golf, taxiing to Bravo runway 25.
Golf Mike Golf, roger.
Golf Mike Golf, ready for departure. Backtracking runway 25.
Golf Mike Golf, roger. Traffic PA 28 joining downwind.
Golf Mike Golf, roger. Golf Mike Golf, changing to London information 124.6.
Golf Mike Golf, roger.
And on return.
Falmere Radio, Golf Oscar Sierra Mike Golf, rejoining.
Golf Oscar Sierra Mike Golf, Falmere Radio, pass your message.
Golf Oscar Sierra Mike Golf, PA 28, inbound overhead Bassingbourne 2,000 feet, requesting airfield information.
Golf Mike Golf, runway 25, right-hand circuit, a Tomahawk in the circuit, turning final.
Right-hand circuit, runway 25, Golf Mike Golf. Golf Mike Golf, downwind, right-hand 25.
Golf Mike Golf, roger.
final, runway 25.
For our second example, we will be operating from an aerodrome with an aerodrome flight information service. The call sign suffix will be information, so we can easily identify this service. It should be emphasised that an aerodrome flight information service officer is responsible for providing information useful to the safe and efficient operation of traffic at the aerodrome or within its associated aerodrome traffic zone. When you are airborne, information will be passed to you regarding other traffic to help you decide the safest course of action. On the ground, you will be given taxi instructions with which you should comply unless you feel that it is unsafe to do so. We will cover the services available to flights outside controlled airspace in detail later. But for now, just appreciate that as a limitation of the Aerodrome Flight Information Service Officer licence, only what is known as a basic service is available. This time we'll start with the arrival.
Duxford information, Golf Golf Oscar Kilo Bravo.
Golf Golf Oscar Kilo Bravo, Duxford information. Pass your message.
The reply to pass your message will follow the standard format using our mnemonic ADDPAR or ADPAR.
Golf Golf Oscar Kilo Bravo, Diamond Star, departing Coventry, inbound to Duxford. 15 miles northwest, altitude 2,500 feet, estimating Duxford at 02, request join.
Golf Kilo Bravo, standard overhead join runway 24, QNH 1024, QFE 1020. 2 aircraft in the circuit.
Standard overhead join runway 24, QNH 1024, QFE 1020, Golf Kilo Bravo. Golf Kilo Bravo, dead side descending.
Golf Kilo Bravo, report downwind. Traffic is at Cherokee, late downwind.
Wilco, Golf Kilo Bravo. Golf Kilo Bravo, downwind.
Golf Kilo Bravo, report final runway 24, Cherokee 1 mile final.
Wilco, visual with the Cherokee, Golf Kilo Bravo. Golf Kilo Bravo, final 24.
Golf Kilo Bravo, land at your discretion, wind 23017 knots.
Landing Golf Kilo Bravo.
Golf Kilo Bravo, vacate right, taxi to park east of the tower.
Vacate right, taxi to park east of the tower, Golf Kilo Bravo.
End of Disc 2.